Love matters. Maybe it matters more than ever these days when so much around us can sometimes seem so unloving. There are deep divides in our towns, across our society, and even in the church. Crude language and lack of respect and dignity for the other can seem like the prevailing norm of the day. And then along comes Valentine's Day, skipping toward us from just around the corner like a schoolgirl with pigtails, and sweet, albeit naive, gestures of flowers and chocolates, cards of friendship, expressions of love, and even pink teddy bears. And did I mention chocolates? Yeah. When it seems that love these days gets the short end of the stick sometimes, here comes Valentine's Day. And here we are as followers of Jesus, as people of the way. We are called to love. We are here because we were created by love, in love, and for love. Paul wrote to the church at Ephesus, "Lead a life worthy of the calling to which you have been called, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, making every effort to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace." And the author of the fourth gospel recorded Jesus as saying to his followers, "I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." Well, there is no doubt ours is a gospel of love. That's the good news of God, and we are called to practice the way of love. Father Richard Rohr, author and retreat leader, gives the church a challenge. He says, the church's prime contribution to humanity can be shifted from teaching correct beliefs, which is orthodoxy, right beliefs, to practicing the way of love as Jesus taught, which is orthopraxy, or the practice, the right practices. Then our whole understanding and experience of church would be transformed. He continues, "What I believe can and should happen is that tens of thousands of congregations will become what I call incubators or studios, or yes, schools of love, teaching people to live a life of love from the heart for God, for all people, no exceptions, and for all of creation, with love as the high aim." Well, I think Elizabethtown Church of the Brethren seems to have a love groove thing going on. There is a lot of love in this congregation, and even in this very room. We can see it in our care for one another, and as that care spills out and into the broken world. And others see it, too, from outside the congregation. Bethleen Bradford, our previous administrative office staff, who is now on long-term disability due to recurring cancer, has remarked time and time again about how loving this congregation is. It is the gestures of love of this body of sisters and brothers who touch her deeply. And hers is one of many, many stories that we pastors are privileged to hear and to witness. Yes, indeed, love matters, and we are called to be a school of love where we learn and where we practice love. And this morning, I'd like to look at just 4 ways that love matters. In the school of love, kindness matters. For the Apostle Paul, as written in his letter to the Galatians, kindness is right up there as an ideal for the people of God. Kindness is one of the fruits of the Spirit, those pillars of character. You know, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. All evidence of mature faith and deep character. And the importance of kindness is universal. The Dalai Lama has said, "My religion is very simple. My religion is kindness." Kindness is not only good for the recipients of the acts of kindness, it is also good for those who initiate them. When we are kind to the people around us, we typically feel good about ourselves in a good, healthy, and balanced way. Our brains release increased levels of dopamine, and our bodies release more oxytocin, a hormone directly related to our cardiovascular health. Kindness is good for the heart. And a number of studies link kindness and good relationships to slowing down the aging process, and that is not a bad side effect. A few less wrinkles for a few kind words. Kindness matters not only in terms of our health. Kindness is contagious from a social standpoint and causes us to cooperate more, and it strengthens our sense of connection and fosters strength in our families, in the corporate world, and even in society as a whole. Imagine the rippling effects of kindness in this world. In the school of love, listening matters. We are trained in the art of making a strong case for our point of view, and many of us may have learned to listen, not so much to understand the other, as to be willing to be able to bring a counterpoint. Our Buddhist friends offer this question: are you listening, or are you just preparing to speak? So often, in a rush to argue, we have lost the art of listening. Are we really listening, or are we reloading? Winston Churchill said that courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen. Listening means to truly understand the other person, not listening to agree or disagree, but simply listening to understand. Paul Tillich, philosopher and theologian, writes, "The first duty of love is to listen. Listening is one of the highest forms of caring." And David Augsburger, a renowned Mennonite teacher and youngest brother of our very own Anne Good, says that being listened to is so close to being loved that most people can't tell the difference. When we choose to listen deeply, we discover new ways of hearing each other's hearts, maybe even the other's encounter of God. Then perhaps we will learn more about the wonders and mysteries of our own faith when we listen, when we really listen to others, even those with whom we know that we will never fully agree. Then we will know more fully the unity to which God calls us, a unity so large, a love so expansive, and a mutual encounter so riveting that we find new ways of healing ourselves and our communities. Which brings us to our third point. In the school of love, unity matters. We are called to unity, not uniformity. Unity in that we can agree to not agree, yet find creative ways to move ahead together. Our diversity can be a great strength if we're willing to work at it. Shortly after Dave and I were married, we received a visit from an elderly friend who was kind, gentle, and wise. Well into his 80s, Moses Chu, an immigrant from China, was a local businessman who supplied Lancaster County soybeans to Chinatown in New York City. Moses extended his best wishes to us as newlyweds, and then he asked us, "Baby coming yet?" Well, I'm sure after blushing, we politely responded that there was no baby on the way. It was clear, though, that children and family were very important to Moses, and he wanted to encourage us. Over the next few years, whenever we'd see Moses, he'd always ask, "Baby coming yet?" And our reply was always the same. Until, much to Moses' interest and delight, a baby was on the way. After our daughter was born, Moses again extended his heartfelt congratulations, and then he asked, "Another baby coming yet?" And we had hardly mastered those leak-proof rubber pants and the breastfeeding, and another baby was really not on our radar at that point. But then Moses explained, children polish each other. So we remembered Moses' wise advice, and when our first daughter was 6 years old and beginning the first grade, our fourth daughter was born. 4 of a kind and a full house for sure. and polish each other they did. And sometimes we were polished in the process. Yakety yak, don't talk back. We polish one another as we live together in community. Our strength is in our diversity. It's sometimes messy, it's seldom neat, but it's a beautiful thing. Unity in diversity. In the school of love, action matters. The Church of the Brethren, and this congregation in particular, takes seriously the call to live our faith through action, believing that we are the hands and the feet and the voice of Jesus in the world. That is evidenced by the many ways that we are compelled to work at peace and justice for all, feeding the hungry, sheltering the homeless, visiting the sick, welcoming the stranger among us, being a voice for the voiceless, finding all people, near and far, to be our very own neighbors and loving as we are loved. In light of that theme, I would invite Cheska to join us this morning, and she's going to share with us just a little bit about her journey. You know, as we sat yesterday and talked over a cup of coffee, I asked her some questions, and so she's agreed to this. And I'm just wondering, Cheska, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and about being a dreamer.
Yeah, so just a little bit about my story. My family came here when I was 6 years old in 2003 from the Philippines. We came here through a visa, an employment-based one, because my dad was working as an accountant back in California. Unfortunately, due to the recession, as I'm pretty sure you guys were all aware and how drastic the economy went down, my dad lost his job because the company became bankrupt, and our sponsorships for our permanent residency got removed and denied, and because of that reason we became undocumented. So ever since 2007, I was 11 years old, I knew that I was undocumented. I was actually really frightened and scared. You know, as someone who's an undocumented immigrant in this country, you get a lot of, especially at this moment, rhetoric around separation from your family. And my family is one I love a lot. We're a big family, 7 members. I have 4 siblings, sorry, and I cannot think of how I cannot be with them and not see them in person. Having been 2,000 miles away from where they are currently living, actually, is quite hard already. But you know, at this moment in time, we see that there's a lot of love, but there's also a lot of hate going around, and it's really scary as someone who's in the situation of limbo. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what is it that we can do to help? We believe that it's important for families to be together and for everyone to feel safe and not afraid. Can you say a little bit maybe about that?
Yeah, so the first thing I would say is listening, right? Mm-hmm. And this is the first one, and you guys are already doing that, so thank you so much. Listening to people's stories and listening to not what other people are saying, but those who are directly affected by it, because every situation affects everyone so differently, and we really have to get those perspectives from those who are actually affected by it. So listening is the first one. The second one is now talking, right? You heard my story, you can tell that to somebody else. You have neighbors who are not here, or you have friends in school. Tell them about those individuals that you just learned the stories of. Share that kindness and that welcoming setting, and go on. And with that as well, call your representatives and senators, because that is another individual in your community. And we should be, as we are with our neighbors, just talk to them, let them know about your concerns and issues, and let them know we are as welcoming as everyone. We welcome everyone in our community, as we do with undocumented immigrants as well. So. Mm-hmm.
Yesterday we talked a little bit about your dreams and your fears, and you shared, yes. And you've already shared your fears of being separated from your family. Can you say a little bit about your dreams?
Yes, I have a lot of dreams. I have a lot of aspirations. I'm currently in college. I'm a first year at Franklin and Marshall in Lancaster. And in the future, I really want to work in cybersecurity. I'm currently pursuing a degree in computer science, so women in technology right there. And I want to be able to contribute as much more, not only with the convenience that we're getting technologically, but also the security of that, right? We don't want any hackers going to our credit cards or our banks. But that as well, I want to be an active member of society in the ways of contributing to education. Education is something I'm very passionate about, and I want to make that more accessible to people. Because as someone who comes from a first-generation low-income family, I know it was very hard for me to find the finances, especially not being able to afford college due to being undocumented, that we're not able to attain any federal assistance whatsoever. So I want to make that more accessible. There's so many bright young individuals out there that's just not taking the opportunity to gain that higher education, and I hope that we will be able to utilize their true potential and get them there. So yeah.
It's wonderful. We wish you the very best.
Thank you.
Yes, and we'll walk alongside and share our love with you as well.
Thanks so
Yes,
much.
yeah. I'd like to share a poem in closing by Wendell Berry. So friends, every day, do something that won't compute. Love the Lord. Love the world. Work for nothing. Take all that you have and be poor. Love someone who does not deserve it. Denounce the government and embrace the flag. Hope to live in that free republic for which it stands. Give your approval to all that you cannot understand. Ask the questions that have no answers. Practice resurrection. This morning, each of us who would like will have the opportunity, if you haven't done it already, to practice that hope of resurrection. We invite you to visit the advocacy action activities that you'll find out here in the narthex and in the lobby, and there's an insert in your bulletin to help you with that as well. Let's make our voices for justice and peace be heard loud and clear. In this school of love, we learn to practice love as we practice peace, service, and openness to all. And in this school of love, we find a wideness in God's mercy and a depth in God's love. And we learn to love deeply, broadly, and faithfully.